Fun fact number 28 is supposed to be about prejudice. That's what I wrote down. I don't know if that's such a fun fact, but if you pull apart the word prejudging somebody just based off of superficial actions or physicalities is probably it's not a really bright thing or intelligent thing to do. But prejudice is somebody who looked like that did something and you think this person may do the same. Or you have 100 of these people that look the same that have done something and you feel like anybody who looks like them will do the same. That's what causes the prejudging, is because it's a repeated pattern. I found when I was young, I grew up in a pretty wealthy area and we were not wealthy, and a lot of the people, no matter what color they were or what they identified as, which we didn't really have a lot of that about back then of identifying, but the ones that had a lot of money seemed to have a prejudice against those who didn't have a lot of money. You couldn't be part of a friendship or a group of friends if you didn't have a lot of money. And the people who had money treated the people who didn't have money very differently. If you couldn't go on the close-up trip because you didn't have a job to pay for it yourself, or if you were working to help support your family, or if you didn't have a job, or if it was the senior trip and you couldn't afford to go because your parents couldn't buy you the tickets, and you were probably disconnected from your class because most of the people in your class had money, and the ones who didn't have money tended to ostracize you for not believing the same things they did. So you didn't have a lot of connections in school, and that would have probably been me. I had some, but for the most part, I learned and grew a prejudice against wealthy people. I liked people who were different, who came from other states, had other nationalities. I learned something from them, and they were interesting, and they weren't the same old people I'd been around forever with. I liked people who were different because they brought something more to my life, and hopefully I brought something to theirs too. But the idea of prejudice or racism or all of that stuff, I talked about labels, but and I did mention that I was prejudiced against the rich. And then I found out some of my friends were not the rich, but they were wealthier than my family. I would have considered them rich, even if they didn't consider themselves rich monetarily. I grew up in Marin County, and Marin County is a very wealthy area to grow up in. You're either rich or poor, and there was a middle class, and I guess we would have been considered part of the middle class, but we weren't part of the poor or rich, and there wasn't a large middle class. So we were kind of ostracized for that, for the most part. My sister so tried to fit in with all the rich kids and wanted to be accepted by them and wanted to be a cheerleader and wanted to be in Ravis and wanted to have the designer clothes and the nice car and that was given to her on the 16th birthday, but that wasn't going to happen for us. So she was often left out or worked really hard to be accepted by others, and I liked who I liked, And if they liked me, that was fine. And if they didn't, they didn't. I didn't care whether they had money or what they wore. I wasn't that person. I never was. I did care what they thought and how they treated people, and that was hard for me, especially in high school. But I did find some gentle and beautiful souls every once in a while. But racism and prejudice, I don't care about mostly everything. And I kind of narrowed down my prejudice since I found out some of my friends were rich, that to the top 1%, top 2% wealthiest people in the world, because I think they're out of touch with reality and they're spoiled rotten brats and they don't give a crap about anybody else except their family and their stuff and mine. And you, there's us and them and the division, and let's keep the division going and let's create villains so they're attacked instead of us because we're controlling everything, and all of that stuff. So I think that's why I still have that little, you have money, you look down on me, you think I'm less than, you think I'm not successful because I decided to take a different path in my life than have money. There are things I can do now to get a lot of money, but it hurts other people, and so I won't do it. So I think I'm a little more conscientious than people who just went for it. Now, I think the measure of success is another thing, but there are people of all nationalities that I don't like. There are people of all nationalities and persuasions that I love. And I think they're the best people in the world. So my qualifiers are much different. If you want to be part of my, what did I say this morning? I get disappointed easily because there's people that I think, hey, we could have a lot of fun together. It might not be that deep of a relationship, but we'll have fun. And that'll be great. And we'll be friends. But my definition of friendship and their definition of friendship seems to be different. And I can't be truly a friend to somebody whose definition is so different than mine of friendship. And it doesn't mean they can't be part of my life, but what I realized with certain people in my life, they can't meet me where I live. And I said that to somebody this morning, and they said, where you live, that's your soul. And I'm like, oh, is that what it is? Because, I'm not perfect. But meet me where I live, where my essence just, the way I am, I tend to give too much. And so I'm trying to say no more, and I'm learning no better. But it's very hard for me. And the whole prejudice thing, there's a place for it. There's a place for fear. There's a place for bias. But you own those things. Like my daughter, I totally have a bias against. But other people tell me the same thing. So I think I'm pretty good at not being too biased towards her, but it's hard not to be. I have a bias towards chocolate. I love milk chocolate. If you own it and realize how it damages you and others, and maybe you try to make it better, but at least own what you are and own your limitations. Things can be limitless, but in a physical world, you're going to have limitations. And so you have to own those things. And I have limitations too. And I'm learning to not accept my limitations, but work with my limitations and at least tell other people that I am not everything and I don't know everything. If I did, I probably wouldn't be here. So, but I know a lot and I'm pretty fast, and other people sometimes don't see me. So, it's always been since the day I was born. And so, and maybe before that, who knows? So prejudice. Fun fact number 28, not so fun, a little more serious, a little more my 2 cents or deep thoughts. But we all have prejudices. I told somebody the other day, they said, what if somebody, because I'm interviewing a lot for jobs, what if somebody gave you negative feedback on something you produced? Well, if it's constructive criticism, I would listen to them and try to balance out and make it better, and also try to get more information on how I could do better in the future, and also make the corrections that needed to be done. But if it was just them just trying to disparage me, then because they needed to feel better about themselves, one, I'd probably take the step to try to make them feel better before they felt the need to disparage me and make me feel less than so they could feel better about themselves. But if it became a pattern and a habit, then I'd have to talk to somebody above me and say, hey, this is a pattern for you, and you need to work at it, and you need to use different language towards me, and not just find ways to criticize me. If that's your management style, then that's not going to work for me. I do much better with positive reinforcement instead of negative reinforcement and being told I'm wrong all the time and less than, and I don't know what I'm doing. That's not a kind way to help somebody learn and grow. So, and I basically said nobody's perfect, and I'll say it. This week has been perspective, a lot of perspective, and then it also goes back to perfection, which probably I should talk about another time. But prejudice, fun fact number 28. Is it 28? Oh, it's 28. Fun fact number 28. Everybody has it. Everybody has some kind of prejudice. Otherwise, we wouldn't be able to discern what we like and what we don't like. We just shouldn't prejudge or judge somebody based off of somebody else's behavior. Or we really shouldn't judge people, and maybe I should write that one down, because we don't really have a place to judge. But we do have a place to discern what's good for us and what's not. And I think that prejudice or that judging or that at least sifting of, I like this, I don't like that, I don't want them meeting me where I live, or I'd really like them to meet me where I live. I think those are things you have to decide for yourself, and there's so many choices. So don't judge somebody before you get to know them and you know their story, because everybody has a story that makes them who they are today, with all the positives and negatives. And if you can see somebody and see their truth and accept everything that they are, then hopefully they can do the same for you, and you can make a real connection. Off my soapbox. That was a soapbox one, I think. Ciao, Bellas.